Extreme drought conditions in Texas, Oklahoma, and Missouri are forcing farmers to sell their cows just to stay afloat. And one farmer stated that conditions have deteriorated quickly, and we are hearing the same reports from countless other farm and ranch families. And it's not just the extreme drought that is putting farmers and food supplies at risk. Added inflationary pressures are forcing U.S. farmers in western states to sell off their cattle herds in greater numbers at levels not seen in over a decade. And at the time of recording this video, the American Farm Bureau Federation reported that nearly 80% of the western region of the U.S. is experiencing extreme drought conditions and has been for nearly a year. With the most recent week-long heat wave impacting nearly 80 million people across the country, and has brought things to a boiling point for farmers and ranchers. Temperatures in Texas have remained around 100 degrees for weeks. Farmers have been depleting water and burning grass, and that's not good, as both water and grass are critical to feeding and maintaining cow herds. These devastating environmental and financial hardships have forced many ranchers' hand, and they say their only option is to sell. Last year, severe drought in the West forced 40% of farmers to sell off part of their herds. Now, inflationary costs for things like feed, fertilizer, and fuel are only making the situation worse. Many farmers' cows are now headed to auction. The small sale barn in Elk City, Oklahoma, which services 4 small counties, normally sees about 200 to 300 cows on a sale per day. And just last week, they saw 1,000, according to the Oklahoma Farm Bureau. Some cattle ranchers are trying to hold out on selling their cows until there's absolutely no more grass for them to eat by supplementing their herd's food with seed. Although an option for temporary survival, it is very expensive, about twice as high as it was 2 years ago. Farmers were buying that feed for $200 a ton back then, and today it's $400 or more. So feed costs have basically doubled. The price of ground beef for American consumers in June was up 9.7% over the last year, and we will have to wait and see how this influx and rush for farmers to sell off their cattle will affect future prices. But the concern is that with smaller herds and fewer breeding cows, the next 2 years could spell higher beef prices for consumers. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, or the USDA, is projecting a 7% decline in beef production next year. That's not good. Missouri is preparing to offer a form of stimulus for farmers who are being negatively affected financially by these drought conditions. Governor Mike Parson signed an executive order Thursday offering aid to 53 counties in his state affected by extreme drought. This is good news for the farmers to help stipend costs and lost revenues, but it still doesn't solve the potential looming threat that will be a primary result of this mass cow sell-off. More food shortages and more higher prices.